Welcome back to the JAFFA Wire podcast on Bold Like a Leopard. And I keep having to record and re-record basically the same topic because, first of all, I'm not able to get home in a manner where I have enough time and energy to actually edit and make sure that the podcast is listenable. But also because I keep hearing more new information about this Hunter Biden topic. And like you are, I'm sure, tired of, there's more details that keep coming out, but yet almost nothing gets done because people are basically sitting on their hands in the corridors of power and within law enforcement. Nobody really wants to do what has to be done in order to actually give the American people the clarity on what happened and hold those that are responsible accountable. We're also going to maybe broach a couple other topics, maybe a little bit on these culture war issues of Jason Aldean, as well as I believe last week there was this controversy, it's still ongoing, about The Sound of Freedom, which I have yet to watch, but I will watch. I've been I'm not going to get too far into detail, but I have not been able to basically come and go as I please home. Just been a lot of things to do and things that are more important than entertainment and making podcasts and things like that. But at some point I would like to get back into the habit of releasing some of these in order to hear back from some of you through the comments. And also, I want to remind you, besides leaving a comment, please subscribe to me on one of the alternative social media and video hosting platforms. We've just seen Elon Musk rebrand Twitter as X. I don't know what the hell that means, but it's more evidence that it's a very uncertain situation out there with big tech. And therefore, you should subscribe to me on Gab. You should subscribe to me on Getter, if anybody still uses it. You should subscribe to me on BitChute, Rumble, and Odyssey for videos. And you should always subscribe to my Substack newsletter, as well as my Subscribe Star if you want to leave me a tip. And let's get into it. So Hunter Biden, there was a big Oversight Committee hearing last week. The other hearing that really made news was the Judiciary Committee hearing, where Bobby Kennedy was basically being silenced in a committee about censorship. The Democrats wanted him to shut up, and they wanted to make sure that any discussion with him was held away from cameras, because they were feeling, we don't want what he says to be aired. They even wanted to invoke a rule governing anti-Semitic and racist speech on the House floor. And I don't know whether it's applicable because he's not a member of the House. He's also, they've never had a rule against Al Sharpton appearing. And he said some things that are more inflammatory in every way than Bobby Kennedy Jr. But we're going to focus more on the Oversight Committee hearing chaired by James Comer of Kentucky, and which featured two IRS agents and investigators, Gary Shapley and his subordinate, I believe his name was Jacob Siegel. I might be wrong. It might be Jason Siegel. It doesn't matter. That was a crazy hearing. And to see the desperate shenanigans of Democrats trying in any way possible to deny that there's a problem when this guy is having all of these tax violations and questionable transactions being swept under the rug. All they can say is, well, a lot of things get swept under the rug because prosecutors don't think that they can bring a case. That was their whole excuse, that a lot of times investigators uncover wrongdoing and prosecutors decline to prosecute based on that wrongdoing. So that's not an acceptable answer for the public. It's an acceptable answer if you're in the government and you're used to low standards of performance, where a lot of necessary work doesn't get done because people don't have the either the energy or courage to do it. So of course that's an acceptable answer to people like Eric Swalwell and Dan Goldman and who else was at that hearing? Ro Khanna of all people. So a lot of these people, like Ro Khanna, believe that the rich should be taxed much higher, but they're willing to overlook this egregious tax violation because they are taking an aw shucks attitude. Now, some of them, to their credit, I don't think it's to their credit. They're just being disingenuous. They were saying, yeah, there's problems here, and obviously he broke the law and he's pleading guilty. So why are you making such a big deal about it? I mean, you just disagree with your prosecutors. You disagree with the people that are above you. In fact, according to Gary Shapley and Jacob Siegel, the line prosecutors in the case agreed with them. They wanted to file felony charges. The decision was made above their heads that the charges would be turned into misdemeanors. And in fact, and also, they cited I think it's the FBI or Justice Department manual on prosecutions, where it said that for these particular crimes, you aim to prosecute at the felony level and not at the misdemeanor level. So a lot of those nuggets are not really being cited by the press because they're more focused on some of the more lurid stuff that happened, like Marjorie Taylor Greene showing these blown up photos of Hunter Biden doing some woman like in a very, let's just say he was using a stance that was favored by a certain four-legged species of animal. A lot of these, I mean, it was pretty funny watching the reaction. People saying, oh, is this the type of stuff that should be seen on the House floor? Well, the truth is that you didn't really see the full detail, but it was pretty obvious who was there, and I don't want to belabor the point here. The hearing was tremendously damaging to the people who would watch, to the reputation of the Biden family. Unfortunately, I don't really think that a lot of the country watched. That's one of the big problems with these hearings, that you get a lot of sound bites, but that's just that. If people don't watch the entire thing, which can be hours long, I think that one was 6 hours long. I had to listen to it on my phone. And, going through 6 hours, you have some very good moments, but you also have a lot of filler and a lot of nonsense. There was, at one point, one of the Democratic congressmen, his name is Kwesi Mfume from Baltimore. He actually went on this huge tantrum and said that the Republicans are undermining confidence in law enforcement and the IRS and the Department of Justice and the FBI, and those are the people that keep democracy in check. Those were his words, and I think that he probably would like to have those comments back, but it can't be unheard. What are the big takeaways on my part? Well, the reality is these hearings can only go so far, and to be frank, there's other revelations that are out there that I think make it clear that this isn't just an issue of Hunter Biden. That's one of the big points the Democrats want to hammer home. They want to say that these investigations have nothing to do with Joe Biden. They have everything to do only with his son, Hunter, who was not really involving his dad in these activities, right? So the president, who is the person that they're circling their wagons around, is they're basically trying to say, no, we don't want we don't want to entertain the notion that he was involved in any way. Well, that bubble has been burst, and it's been at least alleged by Hunter Biden's former business partner, whose name is Devin Archer. He's alleging that Joe Biden took part in phone calls with some of these clients, some of these very same people that were alleged to have been involved in pay-for-play schemes with Hunter Biden. Devin Archer is apparently going to roll over. Whether he will, the big question is, A, whether he'll actually show up to the hearing, because he's apparently facing a pretty steep prison sentence. Will he chicken out? Will he also, in his case, I would worry for my safety, right? knowing what's happened to various witnesses in the past, getting Epstein and things like that, what's going to happen to this guy? And then B, at the hearing, are the Democrats going to use his criminal history against him too? Because they've been trying this whole time to discredit some of the other people. One of the people who could have been a great witness is now a fugitive from the FBI. His name is Gal Luft. And in an article that I'm trying to write, which hopefully will come out soon, I make the case that what happened with Gal Luft is pretty obviously an example of the Bidens covering up the real problem here, which is that they're accusing a person of being an unregistered foreign agent and perhaps even a spy for China, when the crimes that he allegedly committed were the same ones that they committed, that Hunter Biden committed. Nobody's bringing Hunter Biden up for charges of not registering as a foreign agent, even though a lot of his activities, a lot of his clients would have necessitated him doing so. And it would have been unseemly for the son of the vice president to be a registered foreign agent if Joe Biden was running for president. So he didn't. Another reason that it would have been a big problem would have been that the record keeping on his income would have had to be much more stringent, and they would have had to document where the money was going and what services were performed, and it would have left a bigger paper trail than we now have. So he did not register as a foreign agent, and now we have to go through the cumbersome process of putting those pieces together based on other factors that were involved. That's why the IRS was involved to begin with, because there were these suspicious transactions. And Hunter Biden, if he wanted this to be, I don't know whether this would have covered it up effectively, but it would have at least defanged one of the big threats to his whole scheme. What he really should have had, if he would have been of sound mind at the time, was a competent accountant and tax attorney who would have made sure that he filed his taxes correctly every single time. And he had the money to do it. It's just that his personality and his idiotic, his arrogance that he would never be held accountable for it, it never really allowed him to do what was needed to be done. I think that he was corrupt either way. But if he wanted to skirt these allegations and not be scrutinized for what he did, he should have had somebody at least square that circle and make sure that he was not brought up on any sort of suspicious activity with the IRS. But it is what it is, and at the minimum, Democrats are now admitting, yeah, he did not pay his taxes and he was illegally possessing a weapon. So instead, they have to go through the sympathy route, and they have to say, Hunter Biden, we shouldn't really be emphasizing his problems because he was addicted to drugs and he was going through all these personal tragedies. His brother died, and his, when he was a kid, he was in a car accident with his mom who passed away, and all of these different sob stories. And you know what? Yes, we should have empathy for people, but the empathy should not allow them to, nakedly flout the law. And that's exactly what the Biden family has been doing. And what I always want to bring up whenever I mention the family is that it's not only Hunter Biden, it's also his brother James, and it's also his sister Valerie. And the fact is that we're going to slowly discover that it's a whole chain of different aides and people that are big boosters for his family. One of the big examples that I like to bring forward is a story that I investigated too. I wasn't the only person who investigated, but it is one that gets ignored, and it's one of those issues where I think the public would definitely benefit from looking at it more. It's just not as sexy as having a scandal like this coked up dude that goes around and bangs hookers and films himself and puts it up on different websites. So the truth is that the Penn Biden Center and the Biden Institute at the University of Delaware, those are two other legs on the Biden empire of corruption that get ignored because one of the legs, Hunter Biden, is so rickety. Right? Hunter Biden's leg makes so much noise that nobody listens to anything else going on this stool. It's probably more than a three-legged stool, but there's these two. I don't know whether you'd call them colleges or think tanks or simply institutions, but there's one at the University of Delaware and there's one at the University of Pennsylvania. The one at the University of Delaware employed people who are basically more on the domestic front, and it's much smaller and has a lower profile, but it is the place where the Biden senatorial records are stored, or at least, it's adjacent to that affair, right? The University of Delaware is storing under seal, right? So it's illegal to release them until I guess Biden retires from public life, and then only then can we know what all of these letters of correspondence between Biden and other people while he was in the Senate say, or even personnel records. There's allegations that Biden's personnel records include possible evidence that he did sexually harass Tara Reid, who was a witness against him. She was an aide to him in the 1990s, and she accused him of basically sexually assaulting her in a very serious way. I spoke with Tara Reid one time. The interview wasn't really recorded well, and therefore I kind of missed out. But those are things that should be made known to the public. But because of the poll that Biden has in Delaware and at the University of Delaware, which is his alma mater, he went to undergraduate school there, we may not know what it says in his Senate records until at least 2025, maybe even later, right? If he gets reelected, we won't even know. So understand this. The bulk of Biden's career as a senator is under seal until he leaves office, right? And we're talking about the records that would pertain to a lot of his policy making, maybe even conversations he had with foreign leaders, maybe even certain deliberations he had behind closed doors, embarrassing positions that he may have taken. Now, it could be also a bunch of boring stuff, or it could be stuff that makes it look like he's more positive than we know, right? We shouldn't assume that everything that Biden is hiding is this nefarious activity that he is doing, and he's only done all of this very dirty stuff his entire career. But it is worthwhile to ask, why is it that we can't have access to any of these records? Because they're insisting that the public cannot inspect them, even though he's a major party. Not only was he a major party candidate in 2020 when we were denied access to these records, he's now the president of the United States, and we can't have access to them, and we won't have access to them until he leaves office and presumably retires from public life. In fact, according to the terms, I think it's even possible that if he leaves office and he does not retire from public life officially, they might even have a loophole there where they say, well, he's still doing stuff, so forget it. We can't let you view that. It's in this agreement that we have with him. So everything has been tossed aside. All issues of transparency have been tossed aside because of this agreement, which for whatever reason, nobody's asking Biden why he won't release those records. All they have to do in terms of the Biden family and President Biden, in order to assuage any concerns, and really nobody is bothering them about it, which is the problem, is to release the records, which they won't do, because I do believe that there are things in there that would be embarrassing to him one way or another. So that's one issue with President Biden. The other issue, which is the Penn Biden Center, which is the bigger issue lately, is his classified documents, which were discovered there last winter. or was it in in the fall? I don't even remember at this point. You also have issues with the Penn Biden Center essentially serving as a clearinghouse for donations to University of Pennsylvania by foreign governments and leaders and pretend, whoever it was. I don't know whether they were all involved in the government or what proportion was people from the government, but there were certainly issues with what he was doing there, because under the Trump administration, which was in office when Biden was running this institute, I don't think he really had much to do with the day-to-day goings-on. But this Penn Biden Center was raking in tens of millions of dollars of donations from Chinese anonymous donors, from people from Persian Gulf, right? So all of this money was flowing into this nonprofit research institute that never produced any research, by the way. And we're supposed to believe that there was absolutely no quid pro quo, and it was all kosher, and these people who were senior figures at the Penn Biden Center, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who at the time was not in government, and Michael Carpenter, who was a former Biden official, and Colin Kahl, who was also another. They were all Obama officials. So Colin Kahl, Michael Carpenter, Spencer Boyer, Antony Blinken. These are all names that I have in my head. Even as I'm driving, I remember them because I wrote this story, and other people have also researched other aspects of this story. But much of the senior Biden foreign policy team was being held in cold storage at the Biden Center. They were basically twiddling their thumbs, pretending that they were doing something. Nobody knows what they did. Nobody knows any work that they did. But yet the Penn Biden Center raked in all this money. It rented this very expensive suite in Washington, D.C., very close to Capitol Hill. Even though it's supposed to be part of the University of Pennsylvania, it really, all of its activities were in they were in Washington, D.C., and nobody can really explain what it was doing apart from issuing tweets and giving foreign policy criticism and accepting donations. So that's another aspect of this that I think has to be explored, because I think many people who were submitting donations to the Penn Biden Center, they had a real vested interest in the Biden administration coming into power. So it's a good question why they were donating to the Penn Biden Center at a time when Biden was not even actively running for office, and he really wasn't very active at all. And supposedly he had foregone running for office in 2016 because he had been too grief-stricken after Beau Biden had died, and it was really Hillary's time. I think that they set up the Penn Biden Center in advance because they were hoping to make a little bit of money while Hillary Clinton was in power, and unfortunately for them, she never came into office, so they had to, but then it became more important again. People started a little bit later really puffing up Joe Biden to be that candidate who could beat Donald Trump, and according to the official narrative, he did beat Donald Trump, and therefore, one could say that it was an investment well made. A lot of that money, I think, is being, whoever did put that money in, maybe they made all of it back and with interest and more. But nobody can really explain why people were donating so much money to a think tank that didn't produce any research, and that also only had people who were members of the State Department and Defense Department as its fellows. They had a couple people who were research assistants, and that's about it. So I don't think, this is where I want to be clear. Hunter Biden had a very central place in the corruption of Joe Biden, but not everything ran through Hunter. There were a lot of people who were enablers, who were, you could call them alternate routes, who had a different role in everything that was going on. And for people to simplify this, what a lot of Democrats like to say is that the only people who care about what's going on with Hunter Biden are Republicans, and the only thing that they want is to see the dick pics and things like that. And that is absolutely false, because if it was true, you wouldn't have IRS agents coming forward. You would not have FBI agents coming forward, people who have been in law enforcement their entire lives, or in internal revenue, right? Is it really conceivable that two senior investigators within the IRS would risk their careers and their reputations on putting forward a false charge against somebody, and they would potentially be penalized with perjury if they said something like untrue under oath, as they have already multiple times at this point? Nobody can actually point to anything that they've said and dispute it or impeach their credibility. So instead, what Democrats have been trying to do is make this into the witch hunt and deflect and say that it has nothing to do with Joe Biden. Now these allegations are this defense is starting to wear thin, because if it can be proven by Devin Archer that President Biden was involved in these calls, that he was actively, he wasn't. Here's the issue, that I don't think it'll ever be revealed that Biden had the managing role in the relationship. He wasn't telling Hunter Biden exactly what to do. He was leaving himself plausible deniability and was hoping that Hunter Biden would be able to keep him at arm's length enough that his fingerprints could not be seen all over this. But the truth is that you can see his fingerprints all over it, because there have emerged text messages relating to this. There have been indications that Joe Biden was making phone calls and he was more actively involved in this than he was in perhaps actual things that he was supposed to be doing as vice president. I remember as vice president, Joe Biden wasn't particularly active. I don't remember whether he was less active than Kamala Harris, but he was certainly somebody who seemed to be in the background a lot. Now, he was also much more energetic and active than he was before, right? He seems to be somebody who than he was today. I mean, so what I'm trying to say is that the Joe Biden of 2014 through 2016, who I think this is the period that's under heavy examination now, that Joe Biden was much more active and energetic than the one we see today, the one who can barely read off note cards and doesn't really have a good handle on the day's events, and often contradicts himself or lets loose details that are obviously supposed to be kept under wraps. I would say that we have a big problem with the people who are in office right now, and that's the issue, that there's so many legs on this chair that it's going to be difficult to tip it over in order to change what's going on. I'm not saying that we have to resort to anything that's beyond the confines of the law, to be clear. But in order to make a change, a lot of people would have to courageously, cross the lines of their loyalty and say, you know what, this is wrong. I won't be involved in this. I won't stand by. I won't be a party to this desecration of our country's legal system, our justice system, our belief in transparency. So those things I'm not expecting to change. So that's about it for the Hunter Biden topic for now. Regarding this song that's been topping the charts, it's called Small Town by Jason Aldean. I'm going to be honest with you. I listened a little bit to this song, and I don't like it. I don't like the sound. I don't really have anything against Jason Aldean, but that's not my type of music. Even the country music I listen to isn't really like that. I'm actually more of a fan of Glenn Campbell and some of these other bands like Marshall Tucker Band, ones that are a little bit more gritty and have or that they have a more classic sound. I'm not into the new Nashville commercial sound, and so therefore I don't think Small Town is a good song, and that's why I'm not really understanding how these idiots who have such a problem with its message, they don't understand what they're doing, and it shows just how pea-brained they are. They think that they're so brilliant and sophisticated when they both pick apart what they think is the message of the song, which that's not really up to them. They can't read into a song a message that the artist that recorded it doesn't even know if it was, if apparently he didn't write the song anyway. So that all they're going to do is they're going to keep hammering at the song and say this song is evil and it's racist and whatever the allegation is, because it talks about how rioters and criminals wouldn't be able to pull off their nefarious activities in a small town, but they're trying to claim that this is an issue of racism. Well, I'll tell you what, okay? The song itself is not a great song, but it also doesn't mean what they're saying it means. So all the energy that they're spending on smothering the song, and all the same type of energy that people are exerting, and I see it actually in my own life. Actually, I was debating somebody recently about the movie Sound of Freedom. All the energy is so stupid because it plays on this whole Streisand effect. The more people talk about, even if it's negative, they negatively attack something. I remember when it had to do with Twilight. Okay, there were so many people that were dumping on the Twilight movies and the books, which I thought were like idiotic. And they were a massive, massive success. They were such a success that Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson, the two actors that were in the film, and who I don't think that they did, I've only seen clips of the movie, but I think that they did terrible jobs. It's well known Kristen Stewart did a terrible job as an actress. If you want to talk about acting as an art, Twilight was a terrible film, but it launched her career into the stratosphere because all these teenage and young adult girls were watching it, right? And no matter how many times reviewers and geeks and whatever dumped on the film, nobody could get them to stop watching it, because that was who they could not avoid watching it at that point. So by the same token, all of this fuss over Jason Aldean's song and The Sound of Freedom is going to turn them into much bigger hits than they would have been. It already has done it with Sound of Freedom, and with in both cases, I would say the outrage actually worked to the benefit of the people who worked on and produced the song. It did more to advertise them than anything that they did themselves. And that's one of the problems I see with critics on the left, that they think that their scorn will win them a battle. And instead, I would say, because of the absurdity of a lot of their positions, and because of their angst and the amount of bitterness that they have, that shows through whenever you see an argument from these people, when they try to pretend that they're doing this on behalf of an underprivileged group, and in reality you start to see that it's really because they have a lot of jealousy and bitterness in their life. They can't really figure out a way to channel that in a healthy way. So instead, you have them basically melt down, and that just provides more fodder for people to ask, really, what is it that they're complaining about? Maybe I'll go watch this film. Maybe I'll listen to this song. I'll see exactly what it's about. And that, I think, is one of the reasons that I think left-wingers are not winning the culture wars as much as they used to, right? It used to be a lot of the same hissy fits would be on the right. The right would make a big deal about a song like Lil Nas X's song. I forgot what its name was. The one where it was like extremely risque, or even it might have been even explicitly sexual. I never watched the video, but A lot of people on the right freaked out about it, and it became a massive hit. The same thing happened with, what's the name of that rapper? Cardi B. Conservatives, when they start in on these cultural issues, not to say I disagree with them necessarily on the problems that they're pointing at in these forms of entertainment. I think that there are problems with it, but I don't think that they're effectively acting against it. So now the left, because they're identifying right-wing cultural works, and they're trying to destroy them in the same manner, but I would say in an even more frantic way. They're losing their minds. By the way, Ben Shapiro apparently made like a 43-minute video criticizing Barbie, the Barbie movie. Like the real thing he should have done was not watch the movie at all, and not even comment on it. But instead, he's doing this on the right. He's helping to build up more of a success for something that he dislikes. I mean, he should be smart enough to know that that's what's going to happen. Maybe he doesn't care. The real issue for him isn't whether he wants to win a culture war battle. He wants to benefit from it. He wants to make some money off of it. He wants to make his meme credibility even higher, because he gets a lot of attention, not only from the people who love Ben Shapiro. He also gets a lot of attention from people who hate watch him. Okay, so that's about it. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'll also post my link tree in the description below if you want to subscribe to me on all of the different social media and video hosting accounts, including BitChute, Rumble, and Odyssey. My Substack newsletter will be there, and you can also find my Subscribe Star if you want to pitch in and give me a tip. Have a great day, and leave a comment.